had a lot in their lives.
Sorry, keep going.
Of course. So they had a lot kind of going on in their lives that were trials, and most marriages have a trial, and they Mary and Joseph give us a good example of how to stay together. Um, this this play, Fosse is really interested in, what brings us together, what takes us apart. Um, and
Let's, I don't want to get too much into the
okay,
play right now because
yeah,
this is
of
all a
course.
prelude to our opening prayer.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I thought you wanted, of course.
Which I
I
was
thought you
hoping
wanted me to.
you would lead in us.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. I wanted to know a little bit about the Feast of the Holy Spouses and that we learned
Yes.
about, because I had never honestly heard about it before you
Yeah.
mentioned it, and then I Googled it. So always interesting to learn more about our faith.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So could you lead us in an opening prayer?
Absolutely. So the Holy Spouse prayer is modeled on the Hail Mary, and it opens with the two titles with which the angel addresses Mary and Joseph. So in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Mary, full of grace, and Joseph, son of David, honor to you, Mother of God, and to you, guardian of the Redeemer. Eternal praise to the child with whom you formed a family, Jesus. Holy spouses, pray for us sinners, our families and communities, now and at the hour of our deaths. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Ruth. I'll let you prepare. Katie, I'm really so pleased that you're joining us, and you should unmute yourself now. And Katie is a very fine novelist. It was your first novel, As Earth Like Water. I got that right.
As
Yes.
Earth Without Water. That's right.
Yeah, As Earth Without Water. And she is also the editor of a really magnificent literary journal, Dappled Things. I just went and subscribed to it, which I don't know why I wasn't already a subscriber, but I highly recommend it. And we are also with Dappled Things. I want to mention, since I know we have artists here, and if you're not a visual artist, you probably know people who are. We're co-sponsoring with Dappled Things a contest for new images of the Sacred Heart. And I put the link down there, so you should have it. You can also find it on dappledthings.org. It's .org or .com?
.org.
Dappledthings.org. And which would also be a good place to take a look at the magazine. So the deadline is March 31st. So I know our Facebook editor, Roseanne Sullivan, was very excited to learn about it, and I hope she has got a chance to make a submission there, and share the news widely, the link, if you will. Katie, I wanted, before we're going to launch very shortly and do most of our talking afterwards, but I thought maybe, since you have written about John Fosse most recently for Public Discourse, maybe you could share with us your sense of what makes him a significant artist.
Sure. And first, thank you so much for having me here tonight. It's really an honor to be with you all and to get the chance to meditate on Fosse's work, this fascinating, prominent figure in Catholic and world letters. And by way of that work, to get the chance to meditate on marriage as a human theme. But so to zoom in just directly on his work, maybe we can say a little bit later to place it in the wider context, but he seems specifically to be pushing back against this sense that I often hear people communicate who have spent time in the field of the arts, in the art world or in the world of letters, that there's sort of a divorce or a split between this world and the world of the things of the spirit. Fosse seems very much attuned to the spiritual life. This seems to have been true for him long before he ever was part of the church. He's an adult convert. He wasn't raised with any kind of faith, as far as I've been able to tell. He came up in intellectual circles. He wanted to be an artist. He wanted to be a musician when he was young, and then he talks about in his Nobel address a moment when he, as a young person, a teenager really, before he was even a young adult, came to this place inside. He talks about this place inside, where it's almost, he talks about it as a secret place where he could hear what it was he wanted to say, and he could listen in this place. And this sounds very much like the language that the contemplative Saint Teresa of Avila uses when she talks about the interior castle and the courts of the heart, where we can listen and we can hear the voice of God, we can receive. So this is very much a spiritual language, but he's starting to use it before he ever really comes to any kind of formal faith. So it's clear that he's picking up on some things in reality that are just simply there, whether we come to those with a story about them in our heads already, or whether we come to them with no story about them and we kind of have to carve out our understanding from experience. So it seems that he spent a lot of time carving out an understanding of reality from experience, and only later came to an understanding of the world that was framed in terms of any kind of religious doctrine. But and we see the effects in his work of his understanding of nature, his understanding of human relationships, his sense of the human condition. And he's always, it seems, been drawn to these questions of the nature of God, the nature of creation, the questions of what's true, what is knowable, what can human language do, what does human naming do for us? When we put words on something, what does that mean? What is it about, and how does that facilitate or maybe hinder at times our communication with each other? So I think all of these things come out and come together in the scenes that we're about to hear. And there's more to be said, of course, but with that, I think I will step back and let us start to engage with these scenes.
Thank you, Katie. I want to mention again the way that Fosse writes is not a typical stagecraft. And what Ruth has done is selected because there's not scenes, there's not acts, and there's a lot of moving through time. And what our talented Ruth has done is selected 2 excerpts that together she thinks will give us a real flavor for this artist's concerns. Ruth, can we step out of the way and put you and your team of actors, who will meet after the performance for a talkback, center stage? This
Thank you.
is John Fosse's Dreams of Autumn excerpts.
Thank you, Maggie. Actors, places, please. We'll be doing 2 excerpts. We'll have a pause between the first act and the second act. Ladies and gentlemen, Yun Fosse's Dream of Autumn, 2 excerpts.
Is it really you?
So it seems. Yes.
That you're here? That I should meet you here now? I can't believe it. That's really nice. It's been a very long time.
Yes.
I didn't know that you were in town.
Just stopping by.
That's really nice.
Only a short visit.
Well, what a surprise.
Yes.
How strange that we should meet like this. Well, here in the churchyard, I mean, 'cause we haven't.
Well, that's the way it is.
And I'm just sitting here, me, as you see, all alone in dark autumn.
Sitting, thinking.
Thinking and thinking. I'm sitting here mourning, perhaps.
You're taking it all in.
Yes, I suppose so. Why don't you sit down for a while? Have you got a moment? Or perhaps you haven't got a moment. Perhaps you have things to do. Perhaps you're in a hurry. In any case, it was nice to see you again. It's been such a long time since I've seen you. And so unexpected that you should suddenly be standing here. Here I am sitting on my own. How was I ever to imagine that you should suddenly be standing there?
I'll sit down for a bit.
This was unexpected.
Yes. I did think of you when coming to town, but because we've never had much to do with each other, and it's been a long time since we last met. You also roam about churchyards. During the summer, many do, but not now. In autumn, in the dark, in the rain.
No, hardly anyone now that it's autumn and rain.
You know, you know, you know, when I came to town yesterday, on the plane that is, well, there was a child who said up in the plane, when we were high up in the sky, we can't see the birds. Strange way of putting it, don't you think? And the other day, I was talking to a little girl. She was probably only 2 years old. She showed me her doll. I said, that was a lovely doll. I asked her its name. She said the doll was called Amali. I said, do you know what she then said? She said that all lovely names are sad.
Lovely way of putting it.
They say so many things, small children. They can quite effortlessly speak the truth.
You haven't had children? You still live alone?
And you still live with your wife and your son.
Yes.
But why are you sitting here?
I'm just sitting here.
Do you come here often?
Not that often. Quite seldom, actually. Now and again.
Do you not live that far from here?
A bit. Not that far, though. Did you just end up here, or did you want to come?
I just went for a walk and then I came here.
Yes. I suppose that's how it was for me, too.
You don't usually come here then?
It's been known to happen. Because I've been here before, but not that often.
Isn't it strange that we should meet here?
How are you?
Fine, thanks.
Seriously, I mean.
Not too bad. Not too bad. Things are fine. I don't know. How about you?
Things are all right. Do you have to go?
No, not yet.
There's nothing you have to do.
You know,
Yes?
no, nothing.
Tell me.
Do you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that perhaps I came here to the churchyard. I mean, so as to meet you. Perhaps that's how it is. Perhaps. And why did you come here then?
Perhaps to meet you? It could be. Who knows? I don't know. That probably was why I actually thought of you before coming here. It's true, but I've done so before, yet you didn't come.
Is it true?
Yes. Did you think I was here? No.
Or yes, rather. In a way, I suppose I did. I didn't think of it that clearly, but in a way, I suppose I did come. Well, to where I knew you'd be anyway.
But you didn't think I'd be here.
No.
Same here. Now and then, not that often, but now and then I think of you. It's true.
I think of you as well. You're reading what's written on the gravestones?
Yes. Everyone goes to a churchyard, does, don't they?
That's what I was about to say. I think everyone does. I do in any case. Perhaps that's why the gravestones are there. Perhaps. So we can go around reading what's written on them and think about who the deceased may have been.
I think they're there for God to remember who's lying there.
You know, you know, well, all the dead, well, the endless amount of people who are dead. You know, well, whenever I'm in a city, when I stand on a height and look out over a city, right, then I look at house upon house and I think of the people now living in the houses who now live there, now work there. Well, in a few years' time, not one of them will be left. In a short while, they'll all be gone, and new people will be there in the houses, in the streets. Little by little, all people are substituted by other people, is what I think. And if you imagine 100 years ago, not even that, then it was completely different people who were in the city, walked the streets. But the city's there, the houses are there.
Yes. That's why I think I like old houses so much. They look after them that have been, but who are no longer in a way. In any case, that's the way it is. Did you know that I had several old houses?
You have?
Yes, but I'm not so practical. Things don't work out well between me and houses of mine. I can't manage to keep them in order. I've moved, sold them.
You have.
Yes. That- all right, we have.
Dorothy von Obsfelder, 1876 to 1903. Newt Henland, 1959 to 1982. Did you know him? Do you know anyone lying in this churchyard?
Yes.
Several.
Yes. Yes, I do. But
You don't have to talk about it.
should we go somewhere we can be alone?
To be alone, eh? To my hotel room, perhaps? With pleasure. Yes, perhaps.
Could I say that?
Would you like to then?
Yes. Perhaps.
No, be serious.
I've always wanted to, haven't I?
So why haven't you told me then? Before, I mean.
One can't say such things, can one?
But do you want to?
I've missed you. Often I have.
Yes. You know, well, I I did think that I might meet you when I went out. That's the truth. I thought that quite clearly I knew I'd meet you. Isn't it strange? Very strange.
Should I tell you something? When I stood looking at the gravestones over there before you arrived, the one where it said something or other about Van Obsfelter on it, then I thought of you. It's really strange. I stood there missing you. We haven't seen each other for a long, long time, and then we meet here in dark autumn in a churchyard. And just after, I've been standing there thinking of you, missing you. Often at night when I lie in my bed on the sofa, I feel you there. It's insane, still like not that often, perhaps, just now, but now and then. You sort of lie next to me, and I hold you close. It's true, I have often wondered if you also feel that you sort of lie next to me, I mean. You do.
Yes.
That's probably only feelings. Something we imagine if we, you and I, got together, all that would disappear, all would become trouble and strife, and after a few years we wouldn't be together any longer. We'd just move apart. Anyway, we, like all the rest, that's the way it is.
Perhaps.
Yes,
That's the way it is and isn't. Of course.
perhaps.
May I touch you? Nice. Right? I feel a rush right through me.
Me too. But I suppose we can't. But I suppose we can't, and so we'll want to sleep together as well. Is it important to sleep together?
In a way, it is. Yes.
Sleep with anyone, me, for that matter.
But that's something else.
Yes, of course.
Because love does exist.
Perhaps. But it is, in a way, without care for anything but itself. It doesn't have compassion. It doesn't, so I don't know if I like love. I think I'm against love, love which makes fathers leave their children. And I'm against it.
But we are going to die, aren't we? I have no children. I have no husband. I am alone.
And you know that
We have to be together. We've both known it for ages. Time hasn't just passed by. We've missed each other for ages, but neither of us has dared to admit it. It has been too dangerous, perhaps. And we've both felt the same way. I have also often felt that you sort of lie next to me, or I next to you. Even though you weren't there, you've been there. I felt you. I've known that you were there. So it's like that. It is.
Perhaps. I suddenly felt so empty, almost as if I was bored, really empty, really stiff. That's how I felt.
But you were sitting here crying. I saw you. I saw you'd been crying here alone.
Doesn't mean anything. That's just the way it is. It's nothing to worry about. And I'll tell you, I cannot stand these feelings. Feelings. Bloody feelings. I hate feelings.
And of course, you have your family, wife, child.
Yes. Yes.
And then you sit here crying, alone.
No. No, I didn't sit here crying.
You and what you call love sit here crying.
I, in what I call love, sit here crying. Yes, exactly. Love and death. Only love and death.
So that life may continue, so that the houses and the streets and the cities may be filled, so that people may die in fear and pain and despair, so that people may huddle together in joy and pain and fear. And new little people who talk of lovely names always being sad may be born in fear and pain and despair. And everywhere what we call love shall be so infuriatingly incomprehensible, so totally impossible to define, but it is there. Well, we clearly feel it because we are in it. Love. Here we are, alone and together. We both know. We know. Perhaps it's love that saves the dead. Perhaps.
God's love.
I don't know anything about God's love, but perhaps. Perhaps it's God's love. Perhaps.
But then it is God within us, to put it that way, that saves the dead.
Perhaps it's like that. Or are the dead saved by the birth of children?
We're just talking, of course. It's only rubbish what we're saying. It's only rubbish, it is.
Yeah, yes, of course. But the dead, well, they're here. They're lying there, and
It isn't rubbish. They have lived. And now they're lying there. Now they're dead. Now there's nothing left of most of them. They were nothing. Nothing at all. And then there were two people who, whichever way they did it, with lust and longing, certainly was, well, it was two people.
no. Now it's getting embarrassing. Ugh. You shouldn't say everything. I hate it when people have to be so free and flash and talk about everything.
Quite agree. It is awful. always equally embarrassing. It's always so awful and sexy to talk about sex.
And sexy, eh?
Yes, sex, what a word. And God are the same.
Oh, stop it, do.
I am serious, or as serious as I'll get. But the more you talk about sex, that is, and the more you talk about God, the more it just disappears what it is you're talking about. And finally, there's only the talk left.
There you go again, with all this love and all this death of yours.
But this is completely insane. We meet here by coincidence. We've met before, and then, well, I'm married. I'm faithful. I have a child I wish to look after.
Yes, I know. I know all that.
I'm fond of my wife. I've loved her, yes, just like I now love you.
I am alone. I miss you.
Everyone is alone.
Not you.
I am alone. Everyone is alone.
Everyone's alone.
Are you leaving? No. Don't go.
Um,
Ladies and gentlemen, end of Act 1. And now I'll ask my actors to take their places again. And we will continue with Act 2, another scene from Yoon Fosse's Dream of Autumn.
We've been sitting here on the bench for a while, Father and I. I saw you standing there, and I thought,
Yes, you've come early as well. Yes. But you haven't met before, have you?
so you didn't come alone.
No. She came along as well. You haven't met before, but now you finally meet. Of course, you should have met earlier, but, well, it never happened. You should have met under happier circumstances, perhaps, but, well,
It's good you came anyway. You and your grandmother were such good friends when you were little. Why don't we sit down
all right.
on that bench? Anything wrong with sitting on that bench?
No, no. We have to sit down.
so I gather.
Yes, come along.
We have to.
Please do. Come and have a seat.
Won't you come along? Won't you come along with me? We'll sit down and you can sit next to me. Come on now.
Yes, do come. Please, won't you come?
I'm not sure I should have come.
Come on.
I don't know.
Come on.
Yes, do.
You have to come with me.
So, grandmother's gone.
Yes, it's sad. She had a stroke. Nothing could be done. Nothing.
I apologize. We had a technical glitch here. Let me recapture the You can probably unmute yourself. Lisa Goodman, I'm trying to find you. It's not as easy as I should. Sorry, I was trying to unmute someone interfering and I muted an actual actor by mistake.
Oh, no worries. I'm under mother.
There you go. There you go. Under mother. Now I'll know if I do it again, but hopefully let's continue and apologies.
No worries. Thank you.
She had a stroke. And nothing could be done. Nothing.
I'm so sorry. At the hospital, yes, she was sent to the hospital, thought it best not to do anything, just to let things take their course.
Yes.
They were probably right.
It was a severe stroke.
Very severe. Well, that's the way it is. It is awful, of course. But she had a long life. And she's been in good health all her life, only these last few years that her health's been poor. So one can't expect any different.
No. You were with her when she died.
Yes, we got a call in the evening from the home. They'd sent her to the hospital by then. We went straight away, and that evening, she died. We were there, both father and I. It was all rather quick.
Was she afraid?
Yes, I suppose she was. She wasn't completely aware of everything, but she was alert. She couldn't talk, but I'm sure she heard everything that was said. I saw it in her eyes. But it was all rather quick.
I.
She had a stroke several years ago, too.
It's a long time ago.
Several years, yes.
But she recovered from that. After that stroke, she even taught herself to talk again.
Yes, it was almost unbelievable. At first, she couldn't talk at all. But after a few lessons, she gradually started talking again. At first, simple words, then whole sentences. And then she talked like she always had, almost. One could hardly tell the difference. Imagine making such a recovery as old as she was even then.
Right after the first stroke, she couldn't talk at all.
No, not a word. Only a few noises, some incomprehensible noises.
Then she gradually started to talk.
Yes, isn't it unbelievable? So you do remember then? I do understand you have things to see to. It's not that. But now and again, well, I mean,
Well, I've come to her funeral, haven't I?
why, of course. But you could have come to see us. You haven't been home for many years. It's as if we might as well be dead.
No, I've often thought we should come to see you. That's not why.
I'm so glad we finally got to meet your new wife.
Yes.
It certainly was about time we got to meet you.
Yes.
I've already told him that you're welcome to come and see us now and again.
Yes, of course.
We've often thought of it, but it just hasn't happened.
Yes. It's sad, this.
Yes,
But she was quite old. Well, not that that should matter, but
Yes, it's unbelievable. We were just talking about it, about how quickly time flies. And Gelta's almost a grown-up now. Yes, Gelta's with us. Well, he came to see us not that long ago, and he's almost old enough to tie the knot, as they say. He's almost 20. It's unbelievable. Yes, Gelta and his mother came to see us not that long ago, but until then, it had been a while since we last saw him. He's all right, Gelta?
As far as I know, yes.
It hasn't been all that easy for him either. He looked a bit worn out, a bit wasted like Gelta last time I saw him. I got a bit worried. What has he been doing since leaving school?
Not a lot.
That doesn't necessarily, and everything's fine at work?
Thank you. Yes. Her work's just fine. Things are just fine.
And with your work too?
Yes.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yes, everything's just fine.
With me too. Apart from this being a sad day, then I don't know. But she was very old, and time just flies. The years just disappear. It's unbelievable how quickly time flies.
Yes.
Our grandchild, Gelta, he's ready to tie the knot soon, he is.
It's probably not as bad as all that. He's got sense enough not to marry just yet, hasn't he?
Well, you might think so, but he didn't.
No, he was quite young when he became a father.
Very young.
But then the marriage didn't last either.
No. Yes, he was young when he became a father. I remember when they came home to see us for the first time, he and she, well, his first wife, Gree. She heavily pregnant, looking little more than a girl, but with an enormous stomach. He didn't look very old either, truth be told. A mere child is what he looked like, and that's all he was. It's odd to think of such a long time ago now. I have a photo. Would you like to see it? No, of course not. I shouldn't have asked. That was inconsiderate of me. Yes, he was young when he became a father, very young, a mere child. But you haven't been married before,
No,
and you have no children?
no.
Yes, she was young, Gree, and he was young when she had the child, but things somehow worked out. They did, didn't they? Things always work out if they have to.
But I don't think it's good to have a child when one is so young.
No, it's not good. I don't think so either. But she has been clever, Gree, and looked after Gelta very well. That's for certain.
Yes.
They've managed, after all.
Yes.
They have indeed.
I don't know if I should.
No, please, stay a while. Talk to me.
Right.
Now tell me. Yes. Come here. We could sit down and have a chat, get acquainted with each other.
Right. Right.
That's the way it is, I suppose. But thanks anyway for the card you sent me. The one with the picture of Rome. Well, I could see it wasn't his handwriting. I recognize it, of course. I imagine you wrote it? So Thank you very much. You went to Italy, didn't you? Well, surely you remember, because you wrote the card. Don't you remember? Well, no one could go about remembering everything, can they? And now, yes, you must come and see us. Perhaps we could have an outing together. And we have a boat, so you could go fishing on the fjord if you like. Let's just get this funeral behind us. It's awful to say so, but, well, she was old and ill, his grandmother. She deserved to die. I know, certainly. Yes, it's awful how time flies. It's not that long ago he was a little boy, our son, a little boy running about on the seashore, Shingle Boy, we used to call him. Oh, he did love to go fishing, he did, when he was a child. He and his father did a lot of fishing together all evening long till it got dark. They'd be out on the fjord. And we still have a boat, but it's in the boathouse all year round. One could pull it out if one wants to. It hasn't been out the last couple of years, though. We're beginning to get old, Father and I. Or when I think of, no, nothing, I don't know. Do you like being out on the water?
Not particularly.
No, nor do I.
Well, it was nice to have a little chat with you.
Yes,
Hey, thank you. Sorry, Lisa. Sorry to interrupt you. We did actually stop. I remember we were stopping the scene at the
Thank
previous.
you.
So sorry, folks.
Yeah.
Yes,
No, no, sorry.
I'd love
That
to
was-
carry on, but yeah.
No, that was really impressive. Maybe we could start by bringing in the actors and asking them about what they got from the roles. So James Murphy, Mary Lapidus, Lapid, Lapidus, thank you, sorry. And Lisa Goodman, can you unmute yourselves? And maybe we'll begin with James, who we're so proud is this is, I think, his third event with us. And perhaps most memorably to me, he was the lead actor of Father McGivney in a play by Ruth Pay Palladino, Sons of Columbus, about the founder of the Knights of Columbus. James, I also know it's like what, 2 a.m. in Dublin, something like that. Do I have that right?
Yeah, just about.
Thank you so much. That's a special devotion. Can you tell us what you got from and how you approached this role as the man in Dreams of Autumn?
It's funny. I think the lack of punctuation in this play speaks to what it's like being an Irish person. We're often accused of speaking without punctuation. That once we find a flow in what we're talking about, we tend to just keep going and we get excited and we don't stop and we keep going and we keep going. So it's a similar way with the punctuation in this play, that it's very like something you would find in Joyce or Beckett. And it's a lyrical play rather than just one that you have to find meaning in it in every line. The meaning comes in the rhythm and the sound of the words as well. So that was one of the things that stood out for me when I started looking at this play.
That's really interesting. And in terms of the character you play, well, honestly, while I was watching this, perhaps it was the graveyard, but I kept remembering Olympia Dukakis's character in Moonstruck, where she asks her son-in-law why a man who has a woman would cheat, and he says they fear death.
Yeah.
How the idea of trying to find love in the graveyard. How did that impact you? How did you approach that?
I think in the character, it's there that he's missing something. He's constantly waiting for something to arrive, whether it's the woman, or whether it's just finding meaning in life, and finding a reason for what's led him to where he is today. So with the man, there was always something that he was trying to fill a hole within himself. That's what I found as I was reading it.
So I believe I remember that you're not conventionally religious, and of course neither was, I'm going to just say, John Fosse. I know Norwegians pronounce that differently.
Yeah.
But for many years, but he became clearly obsessed with the reality of the things of the spirit that can't be reduced to empirical science. Does any of that strike a chord with you?
Yes, like that's that search that he goes through. He doesn't really know what he's looking for. He doesn't know if he'll find it or how to. But just like with the idea of going to that graveyard to be open to something happening to him, I think that's something that speaks to the author's experience as well. He doesn't want to follow the traditional path. He doesn't expect to find anything that way, but he knows that if he waits, as the character waits for the woman, something more is there. There is something more to find in life beyond what we find in a book, beyond what we find proof of. There's something there that he can't know for certain, but he feels it.
That's very powerful. In a dramatic shift in tone, I want to once again point out that I posted a link to your commercial for Guinness.
Yes.
And we're really pleased. It's obviously a boost to get that kind of commercial for your acting career. So go look it up and watch James and enjoy his latest acting triumph. Maybe I can shift and bring in Mary Lapidus. I think I got it right this time, Mary,
Yes,
right?
bingo.
Thank you. So, Mary, tell us about how you approach this role.
Well, honestly, I just tried to put myself in the shoes of the woman here, and I I understand that it's easy to think of the other woman as some big evil villain in a story, but I think she's very sympathetic, and at least from what I get out of this, she's not trying to steal anybody from anyone. She's just a person who's in love with another person, and she knows it's complicated because life is messy, but all she wants is to be able to love this person freely. It's a struggle.
And what would you say about Fosse's work as a playwright? How is that similar or different to other works you've done?
Well, I think the most notable thing that I saw as I gave this a read was, like you guys were mentioning earlier, that lack of punctuation. It makes me feel like it's a stream of consciousness, which I think is honestly how it should be for these characters. You know, real people and real interactions don't have, at least I don't, have all my thoughts pre-formulated in advance. And I liked it. It was a very natural way to write these people.
Thank you so much, Mary. Let me ask Lisa Goodman the same question. How did you approach this role and what did you learn from it and from Fosse?
Well, like Mary said, I tried to put myself in the mindset of mother, and I could tell that she was someone who was very lonely. She didn't have much going on in her life at the moment, and I think the grandmother's funeral gave her a way to reconnect with her son and the family. And in a sense, she was a little bit of a villain the way that she came at her son's new wife. But also, I think that she's sensitive and she has a vulnerability, and she really just wants to reconnect and reestablish that relationship, even though she was very upset about the divorce.
Well, I don't know that she struck me as a villain because it's part of the challenge, right? So the son is in the middle of Eros, but a mother who loves her son, probably spent quite a lot of time learning to love his other wives. And then there's a new player, and she continues to take second place, not to his one spouse permanently, but to this succession of women in his lives. And I think it's complicated for a mother who, so I don't know if any of that speaks to you or fed into what you put into the role. But as a mother, not yet. God bless. It could happen to anyone, but not yet of a divorced son. Um, that's what struck me, and it really and honestly, it began when my sister married and when I was still in college. I was struck by, we have a family, it's a very loving and pretty tight family. And all of a sudden, there's this strange man who's brought into the family as a family member, and we have no relationship with him really. And it takes some time, right? It's they say in remarriages, it takes at least 2 years for the step family to meld. And I found that was true. And then one of my siblings actually divorced this person. And then, like, okay, he was a close family member, and now what is he to me? So I just want to say on her behalf that it's kind of complicated when these erotic couplings and uncouplings happen for how it affects the rest of the family if you have a close family relationship.
Yes, and I think in this case, she hadn't seen her son for so many years that it might not take all that long to rebuild that connection once they're back together. And you could kind of see that starting to happen in Act Two. And
Yeah. Yeah.
earlier in the play, when it mentioned that everyone is replaceable, everyone, substitutes for someone else, the mother is the one person that is not replaceable in his life.
Can I pause and say, if you're not me or Lisa speaking, can you mute yourself? Because 30106 I1 iPhone, you're now, I'm gonna try to mute you. I think I just did. But you really don't, please mute yourself unless you're actually actively being called on. So Lisa, go ahead. I don't know. I just want you to finish your thought there.
Oh, thank you.
It was distracting.
So I was referring back to a line in Act One where woman told man that everyone in this lifetime is replaceable. Everyone substitutes for one another. And I think that truly the only person that's not replaceable to the man is his mother. Even though she's always taking a backseat to the other women in his life, she's the one steady thing throughout his lifetime.
You only get one mom, so you either are in relationship or not, but it's only the one. So thank you, Mary. Thank you, Lisa. I'm sorry, I was talking about Mary, the mother of our Lord. But so I would like to invite anyone who'd like to give comments or questions to post in the chat, and I'm going to invite Ruth and Katie Carl to come in to discuss the play. Maybe I'll start with Ruth, and Ruth, maybe very briefly, you can answer the same question. How did you approach this play, and what did you get from it?
Well, my approach to this play, it's funny. All of us were really intrigued by he doesn't use any punctuation, right? Of course, I was like, surely somewhere there in the middle, he, you know, puts a period or something, but he doesn't. And then it was like, how will I ever break this up into scenes? And so, uh, listening and reading for the natural endings where I could end a scene without completely. I mean, when I was trying to edit it for this Zoom, and this is, I would say this represents maybe only 1/3 of the play. So there's another 2/3 that are just gorgeous. And I thought, oh no, I'm breaking the play. I'm breaking the play by kind of breaking it apart. But the beautiful thing is because, as Mary was saying, because of the way he writes, and I guess James mentioned this too, it's natural. Once you get into reading his dialogue, it's just so natural. It just feels so as if how you would talk. And I think that the English translation is just brilliant because there are things that are just cute little in jokes, like um, Mary's character woman says, "Do you come here often?" And in English, that's a joke. So I'm like, oh, I wonder, in the original language, what was funny about that moment, because I feel like the translator was very, very true to that. So, um, yeah, it was. I was approaching it as how to sort of gently pull the play apart without completely tearing it apart, and to still give people that sense of that circularity of his work. And that was a lot of that was working with the actors to find um, visual cues for the audience, and also audio, because the three actors are very talented vocally also, but to find ways to pick up on
No,
each other's
no,
work.
no. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
it's this combination. The actors love to work with you, I'm sure, because you're so giving to the actors and appreciative. But it's also it's also true that we're pulling in some very fine actors to perform this work. And I know we have in the audience, it's not a huge audience, but professors and poets and artists. And so I want to thank all of you for giving them a chance to experience the work of this great artist, which I really think we succeeded in that regard. And in that cue, let me bring in Katie Carl to give us some reaction to what we just saw. And please put your questions in the chat box. If you're in the audience, we'll get to them. Katie?
Yeah, thank you, Maggie, and thank you, everybody. James, Mary, Lisa, Ruth. This is completely gorgeous. It really does justice and honor to this play and this playwright. I come to this, I guess, a bit more familiar with Fosse's fiction than with his. This was the first of his plays that I had read, but loving exactly what James picked up on in it, which is that it participates in this tradition of, for example, Beckett, and there's another 20th century playwright, Penter, who both use these sorts of repetitious scenes and phrases. And the more something is repeated, the more times it calls back, the more it deepens the concept. Again and again, you get this line, "That's the way it is, that's the way it is." And the more that it's repeated, the more perhaps the more that calls into question whether it is actually like that. Is that really the way it is? Perhaps it is that way, and perhaps it isn't. Um, perhaps we do love, and perhaps we don't. Perhaps our love is like God's love, and perhaps it's not. Perhaps it is in some ways and not in others. And then another thing that struck me very intensely that Lisa pointed out was the loneliness of these characters, how terribly alone they all are. And this resonated for me with Pope St. John Paul II's concept of original solitude that he talks about in his theology of the body. And that's prior to any love or marriage tie that we form, is sort of we're coming out of that into whatever else we enter into. And it's clear that these characters all in some way get trapped back in that original solitude, so that it's almost not fully possible for them to enter into something, to commit themselves totally. And it does seem tied to this this fear of impermanence, this fear of, the meaning of life, the meaning of death. What is it that's after death? Or is there, is it the case that the meaning of our commitment is changed by the fact that that we don't control when we leave this life, right? This and this connection between Eros and Thanatos has been explored by writers for centuries. But this is a very fresh way of going about that, by placing the entirety of the play in a graveyard. It's sort of tremendously spooky and right, right. There's a seriousness that is simply there because of the setting, that allows, or I think frees up the characters to be a little less serious about these serious things, and they can enter into them in this slightly more playful way, in this tradition of, I guess the Renaissance humanists would talk about serio ludere. You'll hear another contemporary playwright, Jane Sharle, will talk about serio ludere in her plays, in this way of treating lightly things that are not in themselves light. And it takes a significant amount of strength to do that.
I was struck, and you talk about the setting. So I was struck in a way, you say, right, death and love, Eros and Thanatos. These are striking classic themes. But one of the things that struck me was the way, the accidentalness of the meeting of Eros and the permanence of the setting of the graveyard. Did that strike any chord with you?
For sure. I think there is a permanence about marriage in itself. Is It's meant to be that way from the beginning. It's meant to be that way. We hear in scripture Christ talk about from the beginning, it was not so that marriages were to be split. There was meant to be commitment. When you go back to Genesis, the scenes between Adam and Eve, there's this sense of permanence. This one is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, right? There's intended to be that kind of permanence. And since that's not there in the way that the characters seem to think about marriage, although it does seem to be there in the way that this we kind of slips back certainly into the man's talk, and it's there in the way that the mother thinks about how she wishes that there hadn't been this separation, that there hadn't been occasion or cause for that. So there are glimmers of the characters being at least in touch with this desire for permanence, in the sense that there is some permanence, but they are living in a contemporary context when there's also some distance from that. So
We had a few questions, and I invite people to ask more. One is from our own Roseanne T. Sullivan, and it's a broad question, and I think Ruth and Katie are both invited to answer this. What is the spiritual importance of this work?
Ruth, I've been talking a lot. Why don't you take this one?
Well, I'll just jump in terms of the spiritual importance of these two scenes that we pulled from the work. Just personal, and sort of what I went into is what I love about this particular playwright is that his capability of writing language so well. And so the scene that he writes, and it is the opening scene of the play, where he writes the two man and woman getting together, is so romantic. It is, obviously it's in a graveyard, so not quite, and they're somewhat intellectual, so maybe that's different. But there's very much that feel, that flirtatious and like the pulse, that Valentine's Day feeling, and then it's contrasted with, as we would have gone in further in the journey with Mother. And by the way, we didn't have it because he wasn't speaking, but Mother is with Father for most of that scene. So he's actually there in the graveyard as well, you know, which is really interesting how it changes because since he was non-speaking, there was no way really, because to portray him on Zoom, we would have had to have his camera on and had to have a way to like let you know that he was part of the scene. Uh, so father was there. We just didn't show that, and that kind of contrasts, and the rest of the play really does. You know, again, this is only 1/3 of a very full play. The rest of the play contrasts the permanency of the graveyard, the permanency of mother and father's marriage, and in fact, the permanency of um, what we were not able to get into is that, and I don't want to spoil it, but at the same time, mother strives very
Spoil it.
well, mother strives very much to build. And you can see it even in this, that she's trying to reach the new wife. Also, you know, all of you are touching upon, he'll only have one mother, however many wives he has, right? And she ends up being this bridging character. And then, if it's okay to spoil it, Gree shows up, you know, so the old wife shows up, and what I love is Fosse himself says, you know, that he that spirituality that Katie was talking about that made him seek, you know, he was like there was a space where this creativity was coming from and he couldn't put it, or maybe you said this, Maggie, he couldn't, science didn't describe that space, but something creative, a creative being, this described that creative space, and so he continued to seek his spirituality. And from there, now in his writing, he's seeking more and more these themes of like reunion and redemption. And so I'm not saying it's one big happy ending, but it left me crying. I told Maggie, it left me crying in an airport when I was reading the play, because I I love when it's and this is the phrases that you all were pulling out. They were, you know, and love. I love love, but not like the romantic love does, but like that really, it's painful, but we're gonna keep trying to love each other, love. And he nails all of those though in the play, like because I think that scene between man and woman is still for out of the box, like, oh, he gets that really, really well. And then, but there's all this other love. There's all this other love in that play as well, and God is love. I guess that was sort of roundabout, but
Yeah, no, I mean, he speaks very little about his conversion experience. You included in the Eventbrite a few quotes from him about it. Um, the only thing I know is he led a very hard drinking, challenging, addicted life. And sometime around the age of 50 or 52, he converted to Catholicism, married, and had 6 kids. So, I mean, I don't know what that means, but it's not an ordinary conversion experience. Let me give another comment from Joseph. I really felt in the language that kind of beautiful, cold, gray landscape. I experienced this visually in Scandinavian movies. My experience is, are there scenes in the play where the fire breaks out, so to speak, where conflict boils up and over? Ruth?
Katie's read the play as well, and I'll be interested in her take on this. That's a fascinating insight because in a way I would say no, but there are zings. There are these zings, and you saw them as Mother was giving some of her monologues, where she's just like testing, testing, testing. Um, but I would say more warmth than fire. Like the conflicts are. Mm, it's not that they're cold in the sense of emotionally cold. They're just they're more tugs. The conflict is like a tugging. Like what I kept saying to the actors is, you know, woman's pulling him in one direction, mother's pulling him in another direction. When Gree arrives on the scene, she's going to pull him in yet another direction. There's just this going on more so than fires. But that was just my
Well,
way.
let me ask you this idea. He experienced, this is only one expert, a kind of beautiful, cold, gray landscape that I experience visually in Scandinavian movies. Do either you, Katie, or Ruth, did you experience it that way, or maybe not?
There's so much talk of the dark, rainy autumn. Yes, so I did get that feel from it. And then of course associatively you're familiar with that, with Ibsen and with Bergman's movies. And so there was this sort of feeling that this could have been, you could have had Bergman film this and it would have come across very well. Rather than fire, the word that I would use for the way things develop at the end, there's this incredible intensity where in the early scenes there's this playfulness and almost lightness about these serious things in this serious place. Toward the end, there's a point where that seriousness can't be denied, and it becomes this weight that all of the characters are just visibly having to hold up under. Um, and without saying much more about the plot or spoiling the end for those who haven't read all the way through, which I
No,
strongly
no, go ahead and spoil it. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I don't think you can spoil a really good play by,
Yeah, I will say
only
that
mediocre movies can be spoiled.
I will say as much then that there are deaths at the end, more deaths, and there is an intense sense of the tragic, and it's clear that what has died is not only individuals but the connection between them as well, and that Fosse carries that death as a sense of intensely of the tragic, right? Um,
Yeah. Do we have any last questions for anyone here? The actors, the stage director, Katie Carl? If not, I want to express, first of all, thank you for all of you, especially our actors, for bringing this to life. I think it's actually a really significant moment to be able to experience this work, even if partially, and we hope to promote it. And we hope that it might lead to more productions of his plays, and more work for the actors, secondary, but still wonderful role. And Katie, can you give us, so on the great theme of Eros and Thanatos, love and death, how would you compare Fosse's thought? Where does it lie in our artistic or philosophical landscape?
And I feel that the tone here is a good deal sadder than I think older works that deal with these same things. When I think about, for example, Shakespeare's comedies and even some of his tragedies, you have a sense that this situation is broken, but maybe the whole world around it isn't broken. Maybe the reason that we can see the brokenness so easily here is because we have a sense of what's outside it and is stable. Things really fall apart toward the end here, and I think we are looking more at, if not a broken cosmos, then a sense that we have lost touch with it somehow. And that's not maybe something that's something that maybe is good to sit with and just feel. And I think when you sit long enough with that, you do end up, as Fosse has biographically, with this yearning for something more, and something that is, going to reunite us with this original integrity that we sense of have ourselves as having had at some point. There's something that we want to get back to. There's some earlier point in time that these characters keep trying to find their way back to, and they're not ever quite able to do it. But there is a sense that at least it exists, and there's this sense that we've been thrown out of we've been thrown out of the garden, right? We're in the graveyard. There's a sense of wanting to get back to the garden, and the more that
That's
this that resonates. Yeah.
Katie, is there anything you're working on in addition to being the editor of this important journal, dapplethings.org? Is there anything you're working on creatively you'd like to share with us?
Thank you for asking. I am working on a second novel of my own, but it's in the very early stages, so there's not much more to be said about it.
Not yet.
But thank you.
All right, good. I know you can ruin things by talking too much about them in advance. The theme of Eros and Thanatos, of love, sexual love, and death is, I think, really profound and profound for our time. There are particular Christian interpretations of this, but it begins with the reality that, as Olivia Dukakis said, we're all going to die, right? And if in the natural world, if we don't come together and make and raise the next generation, which is the call of Eros, will die out really quickly. And so, I mean, I've always been fascinated with this theme, and the Christian interpretation of it is really important and significant. But even prior to this, an artist like John, I think, in the graveyard is recognizing that unless we figure out how to come together in love and dedicate ourselves to new life, it's over very quickly. And it seems to be one of the challenges for our time, that not just in America, but really all over the world, the most advanced and allegedly the best in the free societies are losing interest or losing capacity in bringing together male and female to make and raise the next generation. So I thank you all. I don't know how conventionally Catholic John Fosse is. All I know is that this year's Nobel Prize went to a Catholic artist none of us really knew, who, as I said, converted after a sinful and challenging life in his 50s, married and had 6 kids. I'd really like to talk to his wife, but she doesn't do interviews. And so I thank you all for whatever your religion or religious inclinations, for joining us, the actors, and Ruth for helping us give people a taste of a great artist's work. It's what the Benedict XVI Institute, it's like a dream of us that we could help. And so thank you, Katie. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, James Murphy and Mary Lapidus and Lisa Goodman. And thank you all for coming, because when I was in Yale, I was part of a debating society, and we debated the stupidest topic ever, which was a true artist needs no audience. That's really false. It's the audience that gives life to the artist. So by participating, you're helping to give life to a new generation of artists. So we thank you all for coming. There's a lot of praise in the chat room, which I hope the artists see for the work that you've done. And I hope you come with us again. And we're going to get out in an hour and a half. So that's good too. Thank you all. And thank you, Katie. And if you don't forget the link at the beginning, if you know anyone who can produce visual art, new images of the Sacred Heart of Jesus Christ, that's a wonderful thing that Dappled Things is doing. And we hope you'll enter the competition if you're an artist, or share with your artist friends if not. Thanks.
Yes, please. Thank you so much. And thank you, Maggie, for having me here tonight. And Ruth, James,
Right.
Lisa, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Ruth.
Thank you.